This is a native Power BI table which has been enhanced with some advanced techniques. It's fully dynamic with flag icons, donut charts, multi-lined cells, status chips, as well as an IBCS styled charts, which are pretty much all using SVGs. There are some creators who will mention as we go whose techniques we're using here, and this video is going to walk you through the whole process of making this report. So let's jump right in. I want this to be as easy as possible for you, so everything that you need is going to be in the description. If we scroll down to the description of this video, you're going to be able to see actually the entire dataset that I'm using. I'm simply going to copy this, Control C, and paste it into Excel using the paste special function. You just need to right click to get here. And if you click the text option, it's just going to give you a nice clean table. Let's remove the top rows. And I'm going to add one more column here that I'm going to call image URL. And this is going to be the actual flag icons that we use in the table. In order to get them, all you need to do is navigate to a website called icon8.com. It'll be also linked. And I just looked up flags, found all of the circular flags that are relevant to me, and created a collection, which you can do with a free account, that I am going to simply download. After downloading it, I'll have all of the flags that I need in a specific folder, and all of these items I'm going to basically highlight and put them into this website. So literally you can do this by dragging and dropping, Control A, drag, drop. And what this is going to do is it's going to give you all of the code that you need in order to use these image URLs in your Power BI report. So let's say this is Japan. I'm only going to do this, copy image, go to the Excel, find Japan, paste. Now this in Power BI is going to show me the image URL for the flag icons that I need. Now we'll just skip ahead and do all of these. Now, once you have all of the data here, basically all you need to do is just go into Power BI and import that data. So I've already opened this one up and I'm going to import it just as you see here. Let's select the first sheet, and I need to transform the data because there's one tiny thing that you need to do before you can actually use it properly. So the first thing that you need to do, well, the only thing really, is to go to Transform tab and click Use First Row as Headers. And now it's perfect and there's really nothing more you need to do. Go to Home, Close and Apply. Now I also created a very simple background here, which I'm going to show you how to do very, very quickly. Essentially, I'm just using PowerPoint and inserting a whole bunch of things. So I'm going to use a dark square for the background, just make this black. And then we're going to insert a rounded square for the actual base. We'll use this here. Now this is going to be really fast, guys, because I've shown this 100 times already. I'm gonna include a couple more things like square here, which is going to be gray items, rounded, that's fine. Copy it. If you hold Control, you can actually copy items, which is really great. And now that's already something. We're probably going to just add another box here, which is something here. That will be like one of the outlines. And then we'll copy that to here. And basically it's just about formatting these, it's like after the fact. Let's make this a white box. Let's make that also white. This needs to be color coded. And if you just do this and set the different colors by going to the fill gradient, for example, you can actually just open up format shape, gradient fill, set the different colors that you want, take the line, instead of the fill here, you'd go to the line, make that a gradient as well, make the line a little wider. And this is already pretty similar to what I had before. It's just making the background gray as well. So just do that quickly. And of course, if you want to actually use, let's say colors, you can just put, let's like that color here. Now, instead of copying and pasting, I'm going to show you that I basically put the angle to like 50, set the colors here. And what you can do is you can just take these gradient stops, select the color, use the eyedropper and set those colors, which is what I do most of the time. But yes. Now, once you've done all of this, you can save the image as a PNG. And after doing that, you can upload it into your Power BI to use as a background. And if we navigate here, we can go to the actual formatting of the canvas and set the canvas background, the image. I had to set the image as the canvas background and make the image fit and be 0% transparent. And there you are. So that's the background that we're going to start using. And after that, we need to navigate to two different GitHubs. So we're actually going to be using the GitHub repos of two individuals today, David Bachi and Andrzej Leszkiewicz. So they're pretty, it's like well-known figures in the data community. Do check them out and definitely check out their GitHub post because it's really just filled with gold. So for Anjay, we're going to actually click here on this item, download the zip, and basically once you've downloaded the zip file, you need to unzip it and navigate to the matrix visual IBCS folder, and we're going to get this IBCS Power BI file. For David, we're going to navigate to his SVG repo, and we're going to basically download the entire repo as well. And there's a specific folder called chips and donuts, which has the SVG HTML chip power. And basically these two Power BI files are what we're going to use a lot during this tutorial. Now, this is what the actual Power BI files look like. This one is Anjay's, and if you actually navigate to page 2, which is the matrix with the 3-tier chart, it actually has the values that you see here, these bar charts, which are SVGs. These SVGs are not simple, and they actually involve something like a lot of different measures to get working, and I'm going to show you how you can actually use them so that you can put this into your own chart. David also has a lot of really cool things, but we're going to be basically using the donuts chart from him as well as the status chips here. Really cool stuff, and the easiest way to actually get this into your own file is to actually use the DAX query view. Now, if you don't have the DAX query view, I believe you do need to update your Power BI version until the latest one in order to get this, and make sure you do because it's a lot easier to do what I'm about to do otherwise. So I'm going to right click on the data. I'm going to highlight quick queries and define all measures in this model. And by doing this, I can actually get every single measure that David has in here, all of these different items, and it's basically showing all of these different things. So I can basically just copy this, go to my new Power BI report, go to my DAX query view, and I can paste it all in here. Now, it looks a little weird at first, and that's okay. Maybe it didn't copy 100% properly, which is fine. So I'm just going to go back to here, select all of the items, and paste it again. Okay, so now it looks a little bit better. One of the things that you'll realize is that there's a lot of red lines, and red lines basically just mean that they're errors, and that is pretty simple. It's because the table itself is called something different, and what we can do to fix this and utilize this ourselves is to fix our own data model. Our data is called sheet 1, so we can actually rename this to be data, and this will actually align more with all the different things here. But even if we've named the data itself, a lot of things don't actually exist. So now we can actually see that this is starting to work. So we have something called data sales bar, SVG donuts, and we can actually click this tiny text here that says update model, add new measure, in order to add all of the things that we need. So we're going to actually do that. We're going to go through and start adding things here. So update model, add new measure, and you can see that sales has now appeared. So we're going to just go ahead and start adding all of the different items. Now, we're not going to be adding every single item, and we're only going to be adding the ones that you see me at right now. And as you can see, all of these are now here. Now, I'm going to go through these and actually explain them to you a little bit, and we're going to go and select them like this. Now, you can see none of these have errors, so if I actually throw in the chip into maybe a table, it's not really going to show me anything. But what if I put country and chip? Maybe I need to make the chip into an image URL. And once that's done, you can actually see that there's something there. So the chip is starting to look a little bit like what we actually want. It's not there yet, so it's like hold on tight, but I'm going to go through and explain the code behind all of these things. So the main thing is that we have sales, which is just the sum of the data from 2022. And if you remember the data set, the 2022 column indicates, it's like sales last year, 2023 is supposed to represent the sales this year, even though probably you're watching this in 24. And we're just going to keep going. The sales bar is actually just something he needed for the bar chart here. For this bar chart right here, we don't need that, so we're going to remove this. And then if you can see here, he's got a lot of these different items that are called SVGs, and that actually represents the different chips. So there's a CSS column measure, which indicates exactly the kind of CSS that he's putting into the SVGs in order to give them a specific style and a different icon, as well as these ones called declining, high growth, and market leader actually represent what is going on inside these chips. So you can actually see there's one called stable here, and it's got an icon here which is actually represented with the SVG path here and a little bit of. So if you wanted, you could actually make this, you can actually write the text and it will change the SVG chips into what you need it to be, which I think is very cool and really awesome. This is one of the reasons that I'm showing you how to use this. There's also a lot of different code that's actually being used. The chip itself identifies the, it's like which specific item it's going to be using, as in there is a different code for non-compliant, which used to be stable, declining, which is here, high growth, which is here, and market leader, which is here. So these 4 items represent different chips, as well as the icons that we have in there. The CSS represents basically the shape of the, it's like chip itself. The chip is going to indicate which CSS, of course, it's just referring back to this measure, and which chip it should actually be using. And there is a very, very simple measure called chip chooser. Right now, it's just taking different, it's like countries by name. But if you wanted to add a condition to on which country it should show which different item, then this is where you would do it. So for example, you could, it's like modify the chip chooser measure into something that says for sales where, it's like percentage increase from last is above 10%. It could be a high growth item. If it's less than 10%, it could be declining. If it's tweet, it could be stable. And if it's more than 10%, it could be a market leader, for example. Now, I hope I haven't lost you just yet, but just for reference's sake, we're going to take all of these different items and we're going to name them as Davids. So you can actually go to the modeling view, and if you highlight these and you put in display folder, hit enter, then it will basically wrap all of these inside a folder so that we can, so that we'll know that these are his. I might take, for example, %GT and sales outside as measures, and you'll see why in just a second. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to actually do the same thing to Anjay's stuff. And we're going to basically just go to DAX query view. We're going to go remove all this, and we're going to take all of the measures, query all of the measures in the model, copy all of these, and we're going to try to see which ones that we actually need for ours. Now, it's going to be a little bit different because in a lot of cases, he's put measures into a table called measures. Now, this is pretty good practice. I haven't done this right here, so I might need to take all of the measures and change them into data just for now. That's okay. I'm gonna select measures. I'm gonna hit Control-Shift-L, and if I write data here, then it's going to change everything into this. Some of the things are actually different because now you see there's something here called salesperson's name. Now this is actually relevant to, to Anjay, because right in his, it's like file, he's actually going through different salespeople, how well they sold in the current year versus the last year, as well as what the difference is, it's like from the past year and the percentage difference. This is actually very much in line with International Business Communication Standards, which is IBCS, and we'll be trying to incorporate this into our own table. But right now, instead of salesperson name, we're actually going to be looking for country. So I'm going to take this, highlight it, and I'm going to hit Control-Shift-L. Now you can see every single item with this specific, it's like text has been highlighted. I'm going to change it to data country because that is what we're looking at. There's also, of course, salesperson as the table, and we're going to just highlight this and change that to data. If we do this, it's like, and we're just going down, you can actually see now there's no more errors. So we can, okay, so maybe the data AC is a specific error, which is fine because AC is actually just the sum of the current year. So what this would be is the sum of, it's like current values, which is actually just sales. So because there's a whole lot more measures in Anjay's Power BI file, we're just going to rename sales to be AC. Great. Now, there's a whole bunch of different things, and we don't necessarily need all of these. So we're going to just, it's like go through these, it's like one by one and try to see which ones we can actually use. So first we are going to get AC past year SVG, because all the items with SVGs are the items that are being used here. So you can actually just click on the visual and you can see that the actual items being used is AC, PY SVG, delta PY SVG, and delta PY percentage SVG. These are the three things that we want. So I'm going to add this into our model, and we're just going to keep going until we see everything that we need. Delta PY SVG, for sure, that's one we need, and delta PY percentage SVG. Now, you can actually see that these three have errors in them, and that's because probably they're referencing different items that we have not added yet. So we just need to keep scrolling and add more items until we actually get everything that we need. Here, data AC is the sum of data AC. This is probably going to be called just 2023. Overwrite this measure. Delta PY is just the actual year subtracted by the past year. Do we have a past year? I don't think we do yet. That's okay. And then here, delta PY percentage is just this. It was just the delta PY divided by the past year, multiplied by 100. Fine. So we're going to keep doing this until we get everything right. The data PY here is going to be 2022, and once you've added this, now you can see a lot of the errors are going to disappear. Still, we need to keep going. Add the SVG style. The SVG style here is just very similar to what David had is the CSS, which is just going to reference the actual SVG style box. This is HTML, which I don't know 100%, so you're just gonna have to bear with me. Average delta PY, and also add this. And now you can see a lot of the errors have disappeared, but unfortunately, we still have to keep going. And now, I believe that's all of them, and there are no more items that actually need to be added, but I'm just going to make sure that the color is added. And SVG sales variations, I believe these are actually referencing different tables or different pages that Anjay has, so I don't think we need to add any more of these. But we'll check that in just a second. So now we're going to go to the model view, and all of these items that have just been added, we're going to make sure they're going to the right place. So PY, that's going into measures, as well as delta PY, PY percentage, average AC, average delta PY, average delta PY percentage. I'm gonna call all of these SVGs, and we're gonna take measures, and we're gonna take all of these, and we can actually put them in another upper folder if we use the / and just write Anjay's name. So we actually have to highlight all of these, which is kind of a pain, but it's fine. So now we can see that Anjay has all of his different items in just one simple double folder. Great. We do still need to go through all of the SVGs and make sure that the SVGs themselves are categorized as an image URL, because otherwise they won't show the data that we need. So I've made all of these an image URL, and for David, only the chip and the SVG donut needs to be a image URL. Now we have almost everything that we need. If you remember from the beginning of the video, we did also have an image URL for the flag icon, and I'm going to make this into an image URL as well. You can find out where. And now we're going to start building our actual table. So here you can see that we're just going to start with a table itself. And I prefer using the matrix most of the time, but we're just going to throw things in just to make sure that you can actually see what's going on. So we've got image URL. We're going to throw in the country next. And then it's going to be a couple of more things. So I believe we put measures with Anjay, and I think we can actually put measures outside of Anjay's, even though a lot of it is, it's like specific code, because it'll just be easier for me to see. So we're just going to go back to measures, select all of them. To select multiple items at once, I'm just holding down the control button, and that's basically what you need to do. And now I've got the measures here. You see sometimes, it's like you just call them, it's like one thing and they're all over the place. It's like with columns and folders here and there. You can actually just fix that by just selecting all of the items and calling the name, giving it an underscore, and that way the folder will always show at the front or the top. Now, of course, you can, solve this by having a table, a measure table, which most people do. Just, have a table and put all of your measures in there. But because I was trying to do this fast, did not do it for this one, which is fine. Okay, so we're gonna go back here, and now we're gonna just take a look at what we're trying to make. So we're trying to make this. So that means country, AC percentage, AC versus past year as an actual, nested column. And we're gonna throw all of these things here. So we'll put in what we can right now. So we've got country, and then we're gonna put in we've got the flag, we've got the country. Let's put in more things. So we're gonna go to David's and we're gonna put in the SVG donut. We're going to see. We need to create this, but we haven't yet. So I'm gonna leave this for just 1 second. We also need to put in these different items. Now, there is a little bit of modification that I'm going to do because you can see in Ange's just out of the box, it's in specific numbers. Now, this is really, really nice and is actually more in line with IBCS. But unfortunately for me, the data that I've used, which I should point out is actually data that I took from David's reports and just, made it a slightly bit bigger. This data is in the millions. And because it's in the millions, it's a little bit harder to see with Ange's SVGs. So bear with me. Once I throw these in, not the SVG style. Once you see this, you can kind of see what the problem is. Yes, there is some formatting that we need to do in order to change this, and we're going to do that in just a second. But you can also see that a lot of the numbers are being cut off. That's a problem, and it's not great. But that's okay. For now, we're still, putting all of these things together. And we're also going to make sure that the chip is at the very, so great. But you can actually see that a lot of the values are, it's like a bit offset. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that first. I'm going to go and look at the SVGs from Ange, and I'm going to go all the way down where it says value AC. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this value AC part and just cut it out. So basically, I'm just going to format this and make sure that this value AC just isn't included. I've actually done this already with the other SVGs as well. So you can actually see that in the delta PY SVG, I've gone all the way down and I've made sure that the value is not there anymore, as well as for the delta PY percentage. I'm going to make sure that the value just is commented out. With just this very simple modification, now all these items no longer have, and I can put in the values that I want. Now, delta PY, we actually know is in the measures, and that's just delta PY here, and the delta PY percentage is also just right here. Fantastic. That's exactly what I want. And we're going to maybe do a little modifications to the formatting now. Let's open up the format pane and we're going to set the first thing. So with style presets, I always like to go with none or minimal to start with, because that's really what you want most of the time. So I usually go with none because I don't like what the general stuff has in the beginning. And the other thing to make this look a lot better immediately is to go all the way down to image size and change that. We're going to put this to 25 height and 200 width. And now with 200 width, you can actually see that all of the items, the SVGs, look much better. They're, it's like they have the size for themselves. They, it's like actually show the data that you want. Fantastic. We're starting to get there. One of the problems with, it's like setting the width to 200, however, is that this specific icon is a base 64 icon. So it naturally gravitates to the middle. And if that is the case, the only way to kind of do this is to drag the size to be smaller. But because it's very easy to hide them, you have this trailing space. Now it is possible to fix this, with something else, but I've just chosen to ignore it for now, and you'll see why in a sec. With the country and the SVG donut looking okay, let's just leave that here. There is one more thing that we are going to add here in just a second, and I'll show you what that is, which is going to be these borders, as well as this, it's like a little text here. Now we're going to add another measure, and this measure is something that I actually learned from Brian Julius. This is the 2 CSV measure in X. Basically what I'm doing here is, let's just call this something else. Let's call this PY and AC. So PY and AC is actually going to show the past year value and the actual year, actual current, the AC. It's like this year's value in a specific way. Now, you can see that the lines that I have here is basically going to be the past year is equal to basically formatting the past year value to have commas, because it doesn't have commas out of the box. If I hit OK here, you'll see that this line 1 and line 2 has been made into a table, which is basically just something that's being done with curly brackets. And then using the to CSV and just basically saying that I want to have this table, I want there to be no headers, and it's just going to take these two different lines. What it does is once I throw it into the visual, it's going to have each row be two separate lines. Now, one of the problems here is that you can actually see that the text itself is in quotations. I haven't figured out a way to get rid of the quotations, but I do know it's because this item is now a text. There is a way to actually get the formatting to, it's like make this not a text. And this would be, for example, instead of having all of this here, I simply put in the past year and the actuals into the table. And if I do this, there are no quotations. However, you can actually see that it's a lot more difficult to read. So I've just opted for, leaving, it's like the quotations in, and it's still pretty okay, because now when you actually move this data next to the actual and past year SVG, you have different items that indicates in the actual SVG bar chart, the gray indicates the past year, the black indicates the current year. And because we have this data, we can actually show both of these data sets for this one bar chart at the same time, which is really nice. I do like that quite a lot. Now, you can actually see that this has a lot of spacing, and we can actually make it a little bit smaller. We can go to the format, make the image size instead of 200, 120, for example, and it allows you to have everything just in one spot. Maybe you'll need to move things around a little bit in order to get everything fit nicely and snugly, but nevertheless, it's totally plausible. So it's what we're going. Okay, so that's basically very, very close to what I had initially, but there are still a couple of things that I need to do. And you can actually see on my page, I did kind of do a cop out where, there is still this trailing space behind. I'm sure it could be, it's like easily resolved by putting on CSS in there. I haven't, because I wanted this to be simple, so we'll just leave it at that. We're gonna also throw in, just so that I actually can see it, a simple slicer, which is going to go in here. And this slicer is just going to have region, country. And let's just open all these up. Yeah, sure. That's basically all that we need. If you click on the three dots here, you can add the search bar as well, which is, it's like better touch. So now we're going to go ahead and format all of this table. What we need to do is we need to go through a lot of different things. So bear with. The grid, I'm going to turn off, and we're going to go to options and make the row padding 3 or something like this. Gives a little bit of space in between all of the different items. Great. We're going to go to properties and advanced options. Sorry, not properties. We're going to go to, believe it will be size and style, and we're going to turn off the background here. Now you can see that the background is much more aligned with what we're actually. We're also going to keep going, and we're going to make sure that the image URL, the text here, you can just press space for this column, hit enter, and the title is gone. And it's like, that's basically what I've been doing. And of course, I'm going to remove the total because I don't really want to show that right now. Fantastic. Okay, now this is actually very, very close already to what I wanted to show you how to make. And there's only one more thing that I'm going to add, which is that if you go to a new measure, and let's call it a border, and we're going to make it a space in quotations. Now, you used to be able to just write this as blank, but apparently blank right now in the Power BI service does not work for this function, or at least I've been having some issues with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this border and I'm going to put it in every single space that I want a border to exist. And by border, I mean this gray line in between these different items. Now, if I wanted to actually do that, then I would just basically need to go and put in this specific border here into every single aspect. So I want it between country and SVG donut, this right here. I want it between SVG donut and PYN AC. I want it between this bar chart and delta PY. I want it between, let me see, more things. It's not the right spell. I'm gonna also want it between this here and here. Great. Now that's not fantastic, but if you actually just go on border press space and rename it, all of the items will be renamed. You don't want to do this yet, so I'm going to just hit, it's like back for now. And I'm going to go to the formatting and go to specific column. Once you open specific column, find the border, make the background color whatever color you want. Now, once you made this the background color, any kind of, it's like darkish, lightish gray, you can actually just rename this to be space. And then you can take the actual column and make it as narrow or as wide as you want. And you'll see that all of the items will become as narrow or as wide as you want. This is a kind of a cop-out. And, it's like if you try to extract this into a table, then you'll see a whole bunch of different things that you don't want to see. But that's actually okay, because if you were going to, it's like export this data, it would not look amazing. Let's take a look here in the focus mode and let's see if we can actually show as a table. You'll see that the table has a whole bunch of different random code that is basically generating the different images. This is not export friendly in terms of data. This is here for you to be able to see the data in a nice and concise way, while also making sure that, it's still nice for something that can be exported to PowerPoint. Now, there are a couple things more that you might consider changing. Like, of course, you want to change all of the names. You might want to, ensure that delta py has commas, for example. Maybe you want to add a percentage after the delta py percentage, or add conditional formatting. These are all pretty simple things to do, so I'm not going to go over them too deeply. And that's basically it. Let's just add a couple of, details and what you'll have is something that looks exactly like this. So I really hope you guys learned something today. Please check out these other, content creators. There is a whole bunch of other people that I do recommend checking out. Anjay actually has a YouTube video about his IBCS style, items, which I'll also link. Definitely do check it out. It's really, really informative. There is Brian Julius, whose post here is, I'm also going to link, is the actual, post that got me into using 2CSV to show multiple different rows nested inside a specific row. Carrie Kolosko has a website which has a lot of very, very cool SVG items. And a lot of these SVG things are things that I'm using in my, daily practices. And I think in the SVG templates, there are also her own, chips, as well as different kinds of, charts that you can put in your matrices. So, actually worthwhile, definitely worth checking out. My internet's a bit slow to load, but that's okay. And I actually started this whole process because of Workout Wednesday. They have something on week 42 where it actually has a matrix with a whole bunch of different SVGs and stuff. I wanted to take this with some, other artifacts that I knew about, and that was the video. So thanks for watching. I really hope you learned something today, and take care.